We got Gators breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm back from vacation, a little time in Jamaica with the wife and some friends, so ready to get back to it right here on Gators Breakdown. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. I don't know if I look any more tan or not, but it was a fun time. Fun time had in Jamaica. And, hey, what that meant was I missed SEC Media Days. So we'll come back around to that. Some of it might be dated for you, but at least I have to talk about it, even though I missed it right there. And we'll end it with some, just a little tiny bit of recruiting that happened. I guess the commitment magic ran out when I'm on vacation, so we'll come around that to that as well. But plenty to get into with the part of the squad being in Atlanta last week for SEC Media Days. Hey, hated missing it. Atlanta's an easy drive. It's easy to get to from Jacksonville. So first SEC Media Days has been in Atlanta that I've missed. So. Oh well. I was sipping on some cocktails. Not really. I caught back up with it when I got back. Just followed here or there, just a little bit, but refreshed the batteries a little bit. So that's what happened. So, yeah. So, plenty to get into. Billy Napier, DJ Lagway, Jake Slaughter, Caleb Banks, they were the ones there, of course. I know you guys all know that, but you pick 6 in the SEC. We'll get into that, but you see the title of the episode. This is a team that's building, not rebuilding. Now, are they built enough? That's what we'll find out this season. But Billy Napier's best team, and we get to hear from a good bit of that, and kind of just that continuity storyline, the cohesion storyline. But hey, we'll get into that conversation a good bit this Sunday as well. Guys, don't forget. Independent Gator Media Day, presented by the Sykes Law Group. It is this Sunday in Gainesville, 2 p.m. First Magnitude Brewing Company, right there in Gainesville. Come join us. Tickets start at $25. Gators Breakdown, High Top Sports Stadium in Gale. We're going to have a live media panel. We'll have some special guests. We'll do some Q&A with you guys and all that, and the meet and greet with the players. And the players that are scheduled to appear: Vernell Brown III, Grayson Pup Howard, Jacoby Jackson, Jaden Robinson, Hilton Drake Stubbs, Trayon Webb, and Jaden Woods. Love to see you there. Not much longer to get your tickets, so go ahead and get them now. We like to see you there. I know I have some friends coming. Sure. All the other guys too. Good bit of tickets sold, but we like to see you there. Should be a fun time right there at the Independent Gator Media Day, presented by the Sykes Law Group. Oh, yeah, there we go. And one more thing I want to put out here. Let's see. Got to remove that and put this up there. But condolences to everyone in the Harmonic Woods Tailgaters family. One of our own, Parker Cantlou, passed away over the weekend. And if you've been there, Parker was one of the friendliest people you'd ever meet and come across. So we're certainly going to miss him this season, all the fun he brought to the tailgate. So this season won't be the same without him. But I've shared it on social media over the weekend. Parker, good friend, and certainly going to miss him there at the Harmonic Woods tailgate. So we'll do it right for him as we always do. But certainly going to miss him. And condolences to his family, his Harmonic Woods tailgaters family, friends, family, all that good stuff. We're gonna miss him. But we'll, like I said, we'll party hard like he would want us to. All right. So, that's a hard transition to go behind, but we got a job here to do as well. So, as we do here on Gators Breakdown, there's lots to get into on the heels of SEC Media Days, and this team, building. It's building towards, like I said, not a rebuild. It's a team that's built, and it's been built through continuity, and that's been the theme for this 2025 Gators team. And that was taken to SEC Media Days. Building. It's not rebuilding. You've built to this situation. Billy Napier, DJ Lagway, Jake Slaughter, and Caleb Banks took the stage last week in Atlanta. And the storyline is, how veteran leadership from players like Jake Slaughter and Caleb Banks combined with quarterback DJ Lagway's, youthful confidence, him showing up under pressure last year, has created a foundation for this to be Napier's best team yet. So let's get some key remarks from the head man himself from SEC Media Days, Billy Napier.
The great things about this 2025 team that we have is we have a lot of football players that have leadership traits. We got some guys that have been through some battles. They have experience. It was tough to pick 3 guys to be here today. We got a lot of guys that are deserving. And I really believe that's the most crucial ingredient when you start talking about having a great team, the character of the players that are leading the team. And I think we have that with this group. This group believes in what we do. I think that's where we really took a big step in the right direction last year, is we found a level of confidence that we could go toe-to-toe with any team in the country, any place, any time. You spot the ball last year. At the end of the year, you could argue we were playing as good a football as anybody in the country. And I think that that's a result of our development process. Our development process is working. It's working for the players as people, students, and football players. The organization as a whole is executing as well as it's been executing since I've been the head coach. We're healthy on the inside. We've got great leadership in every part of the organization. I'm really proud of the work that I see every day. The bottom line is we're seeing our people get better. And I think there's something to backing that up. We have 12 guys that are reporting from training camp from last year's senior class. The discipline and accountability for this group is at an all-time high. There's a little something different in the air right now in Gainesville. Everywhere I go, I hear the Gator boys stay hot. And, to me, how do we keep that momentum? And I think we do that by keeping the main thing the main thing. This is a challenge that's worth pursuing, and there's no other group that I would want to do it with. I get excited when I go in that building and I observe our team and our staff work. This 25 group is a new team. There's new roles, there's a new set of challenges. And I think it's important that we stay the course. We need to continue to teach values. We need to continue to prioritize education. And we've got to teach football at a high level. We're going to be values-based. We're going to be purpose-driven. I believe we have enough talent. I think this team is going to be all about doing the things that require no talent. And we have to stay consumed with improvement. We got to keep getting better. We plan our work and then we work our plan. It's not about yesterday. It's not about tomorrow. It's about today. And we got to follow through. I respect this group and their commitment. They take action every day. They continue to stack days. The most important thing right now is that we finish this summer. We need to try to create some momentum here as we get into training camp. The next 40 days are going to be critical. I think it's important that we focus on how we prepare. We got to continue to build the resiliency and the toughness of this team. We got to stay process-oriented, and we have to have the discipline to keep following through. And we got to be the best teammate that we can be. I think if this group, if we're loyal to each other, all right, and we do the absolute best we can do for each other, we got a chance to have a really, really good football team that can put the ball down and play with any team in the country. I'm confident that our best is good enough to get it done. And I think this is a special group.
Yeah, Billy, Edgar Thompson, the Orlando Sentinel. A little reverb there. Yeah, Billy, is it fair to say that you arrive with more outside expectations than your previous years? And what's it going to take to meet them, particularly against this schedule? A lot of people think it's the nation's toughest.
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say about expectations is when we talk about expectation, I think the important part is what we expect from each other. And I think we've learned that, right? I think it's not only do you need to block out noise, but it's absolutely necessary that you do it, right? So I think we got to have high expectations for each other. We see each other every day, right? I think this is player to player, it's coach to player, coach to coach, all parts of our organization. So that's where we spend our focus. I really believe that's when the magic happens, right? Is when, you look around that locker room and you trust the people. I think there's connection. There's a chemistry that's needed in this game. I think if you look at who's had success over the last couple of years, it's veteran teams that have really good connection. So when I think about expectations, I think about what we expect from each other. I also think that it's about execution. You talk about our schedule. I firmly believe that that'll be earned in the fall. So we can talk a lot about potential for the next 40 days, but we'll play the games in the fall.
Coach, we'll go in the center aisle, just right about halfway.
Hey, Coach. Emily Grace McWhorter from The Next Round. You mentioned the next 40 to 45 days between now and the start of the season. What will be your biggest priority in continuing that foundation of resiliency that was built last season? Well, I think it's a new team. I think we've got, there's a group of young players on our team that we need to get ready. We're fortunate that we have a good core group of veteran players that understand what winning football looks like in this league. But we need to develop depth. I think in this league, there's no question you're going to need it, especially when you start getting into the bulk of the conference schedule. So, we have to keep our group focused on, how did we develop some of this confidence? And I think we anchored that in how we prepare, our toughness, the discipline, being process-oriented, and certainly being a great teammate. And I think training camp is critical in those areas.
Wilson Alexander with The Advocate. Your 2023 recruiting class has largely remained intact, which isn't really the case across the league. What do you attribute that to when the results haven't quite been there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think look, we committed to recruiting high school players. We've signed, for the most part, 3 big groups of high school players. And we've been strategic with the portal in terms of immediate needs. But I do think that we're trying to build a veteran team. Now, that 23 group, I tell them every day, look, you came here, you have this experience. We're in position to keep the momentum that we have. It's important that they're the example. But I think nowadays it's more important to identify the character component and the circle of influence around the kid. I think that if you recruit a problem, they'll continue to be a problem. And I think we present our product in a way where we're selling the degree, the alumni network, the Gator Made program, and you have to be up for the challenge of trying to get Florida back to where it's been before. And I think that's one of the reasons we've been able to keep it together is we told them when they came in, look, it's not going to all be sunshine and rainbows here. We're in this thing for the long haul. So I think a lot of this is how you pitch it in recruiting. We're continue to do that, and retention is more important than it's ever been.
All right, there we go. Head coach Billy Napier speaking to the media there in Atlanta last week. And look, he talked about the plan. Retention's been the plan. The plan's been there. And look, I don't think it's the full reason for the results to be as bad as they were in year 1 and year 2 and the start of last year in year 3. Decide not to hit the transfer portal, deciding to retain guys. I don't think that's the full reason for for how bad Florida looked at times. And look, Napier even said it himself last year after the Texas A&M loss that, hey, look, there was some second guessing if this thing was being built the right way. And then we get that miraculous November. And it proved buy-in. It proved patience would pay off. But at the same time, and rightfully so, after that November now, it raises expectations and it raises pressure. And it should. It should, rightfully so. You get those big wins against LSU. You get those big wins against Ole Miss and beat your rival Florida State and go win a bowl game all while your quarterback is playing on one leg. Yeah, we're expecting that next step. Look, it doesn't automatically translate now from one season to the next because you had that great end to last season. Doesn't mean Florida's going to continue. You have to do the work. You have to put your proof, you have to put your work in. But that proof of performance, it had to go a long way for the confidence to the players. You had something to show them that if they followed the plan, it was going to work. So you increased belief with wins over LSU and Ole Miss, and that belief just kept stacking. So you combine the proof of performance and potential. And that retention that Napier talked about was only, it was raised by guys that could have went to the NFL. The retention was raised by guys who could be playing on Sundays this year. But instead of going to the NFL, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks, all those guys came back. Those guys came back wanting to be a part of the potential that they saw at the end of last season. It was a slower build. It was. But sticking with guys like that, you hope it pays off for the staff. The plan wasn't come in, flip the roster with transfers. It wasn't getting rid of all of Dan Mullen's guys and bringing in all new transfers. It was a deliberate process to build some continuity. And we'll get to see just how much that pays off with pairing that with young potential. Napier said it, quote, "I think that's one of the reasons we've been able to keep it together is we told them it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows here. We're in this thing for the long haul." So I think a lot of this is how you pitch it in recruiting. We're going to continue to do that, and retention is more important than it's ever been. It's time to see it pay off. This is the time. If retention has been your model, if retention has been your plan, well, you've been able to retain guys who can play on Sunday. You've been able to have it where you haven't had this mass exodus of transfer portal guys. You got guys sticking in the program, staying in the program. Guys who were Dan Mullen recruits, guys who were part of that 2023 recruiting class, guys who had success last year in a DJ Lagway, in a Jaden Ball, that were true freshmen. And the phone was ringing off the hook for those guys to go somewhere else through the transfer portal. But the wins started stacking up. Florida built some confidence. And now all that continuity between young guys who showed up in November last year for some big wins and the guys that have stuck around through thick and thin and blood, sweat, and tears and not a lot of wins to show for it, well, the wins got there. So now there's a belief that all the cohesion with young potential and guys who've been on this roster for a while, it's time to see it pay off. Time to see it pay off. All right. Well, of course, one of the stars at SEC Media Days is the quarterbacks. And then when we got the news the week before, hey, DJ Lagway is going to go. There were some questions whether we'd go because we know it's going to be nothing but injury question. And of course, that they were going to be, rightfully so, because we didn't get a whole lot in spring about DJ Lagway's health. But when he was selected to go, we knew that was going to dominate the questions. But that also pretty much gave away what the answer was going to be, that DJ Lagway is ready to go. Him being picked to go to Atlanta in SEC Media Days, DJ Lagway is ready to go. So with that out the way, there's not much news on that. He's ready to go. So with that out the way, there was plenty more for DJ Lagway to hit on. Let's start with Billy Napier, though. Napier being asked about Lagway, and then we'll hear from Lagway himself.
Christy Freud, USA Today. I wanted to ask you about DJ Lagway and where you view him as being from a mental and mechanical perspective, and what do you think his best attribute is as a quarterback?
Yeah, great question. I think, DJ, obviously, I think last year was kind of forced into the lineup about halfway through the year. And he and I have had this conversation. I think that he didn't have time to think about anything. He was consumed with preparing, being at his best for the team. And then now, after the season, after the bowl game, you get a chance to regroup a little bit. So obviously he's very talented, but I think to me, we're working on the skill level, the fundamentals, the techniques. We're working on improving his knowledge, his overall football IQ, situational football. I think one of the areas he's ahead of the game is as a competitor. I think he's really good on game day.
And then I think in general, he has character. I think he's very humble. I think he's really engaged every part of the organization, the way he treats people. So a little more advanced just from a maturity standpoint. I think his humility, his desire to improve, those are the things that stand out to me about DJ.
Alex Byington on 3. You mentioned earlier, and both your players, Jake and Caleb, mentioned that DJ kind of has a different personality on game day versus the rest of the week. Can you elaborate on that? Just, what do you see when he turns the switch on game day?
Yeah, I think he's got a really unique ability to eliminate the external. I think he can be present. I think he's consumed with playing winning football and doing what he needs to do to help the team win. Just a little different look in his eye. And I think that late in the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the guy's played a lot of football. I think he played in the state of Texas. I think it was a big deal in his community to be the quarterback, to lead the team. And he really took his high school team to unprecedented success and was a leader, was kind of the catalyst for that. So this is just the next stop for him. But I think that's one of the best attributes about him is he's a great game day competitor. And I think the team feeds off of that.
Trevor Denton, Way 31. How do you manage the pressure of being the starting quarterback at the University of Florida, especially after the way you played last season, entering this one as the starter?
Yeah, for sure. I always say pressure is a privilege, and once you have pressure, that means people are counting on you to do big things. So I'm always excited when people say pressure, and that's why I just love game day atmosphere, because it feels like all eyes are on you and you got to put on a show, so that's what I'm excited for, yeah.
2 to finish on the second row and then on the 5th row.
Kind of along those lines, how do you internalize that pressure? And not to harp on it, but there was a lot of pressure on you specifically last season to kind of save your coach's job at one point. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, the way I handle pressure and, all that stuff, I kind of prepare during the week like crazy. And preparation leads to confidence. So once I get to Saturday, I already know that I didn't put the work in. I did all I needed to do. And kudos to the coaching staff. They prepare us like crazy. Like Coach O'Hara and Coach Napier, they put together a plan for the quarterbacks and just all the team in general. So when we get out there, we already know what's going to happen dang near. So it's great.
DJ, aside from something like leadership, what do you think your best attribute is as a quarterback? And do you have anybody that you model yourself after at all?
I'll say my best leader as a quarterback is, my best attribute as a quarterback is really just, I'd say just as people would say, aura, confidence, and just the way I portray myself on game day. My teammates always joke around about, they say that I'm a totally different person on game day, and that kind of oozes out of me, and it's just great to be able to be that for my guys,
Alex Byington on 3. DJ, as a freshman, most players don't come in thinking they have to kind of put the world on their shoulders, but when you were kind of thrust in there, that's exactly what had to happen.
For sure.
How often, I'm sure you heard some of the speculation about Coach Napier and his job status and hot seat talk. How much did that actually impact you, and was that a part of your day-to-day thinking when you were out there playing?
Yeah, when I'm out there playing, I'm just thinking about playing ball. I'm worried about, trying to figure out, my freshman year, trying to figure out where my guys were going, but I was just, every time I stepped on the field, that's when life just kind of stopped for me. And it's just just playing ball and just being just in the moment. My biggest thing last year, I always wanted to get into something called flow state, And flow state is where you're just moving and it's just natural. Everything happens naturally, and that's kind of where I wanted to be at every year, every game.
Christy Freud with USA Today. I was going to ask, where are you looking to grow personally, whether that be from a mechanical or mental perspective heading into the season, and what can we expect your pre-snap and post-snap responsibilities to be?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely looking to improve on more coverage recognition and knowing where the defense is going to be and truly knowing their responsibilities and also knowing my teammates' responsibilities better.
There we go. Hearing from the quarterback right there, DJ Lagway. And, man, you have to love hearing how he embraces pressure. And, look, pressure can come from so many ways. When you're the quarterback at the University of Florida. I mean, look, when you're a 5-star quarterback choosing Florida, we kind of already know that about you. Now, sure, you are going to embrace the pressure. And that goes for anybody choosing you commit as a quarterback to Florida. But, you know, when you're a 5-star and you have those expectations and you choose a program like Florida, you know, choosing a place like that has the expectations we do, yeah, that tells me you're ready to embrace it. You know, quarterback for the Florida Gators, it's a lightning rod. It gets so much attention, especially when it's good. When you're a good quarterback in the University of Florida, you are all over headlines. Whether it be college football or national headlines, it's there. A lot of times, because, you know, when you're a really good quarterback at Florida, you're in the national championship discussion. You're at the top of the SEC discussion. So that's there. But we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it. So we as a fan base, you know, we put the expectation of the next Danny Werfel, the next Rex Grossman, the next Tebow, the next Kyle Trask on a quarterback like this, and add in the pressure of trying to turn around Florida at the same time. And you heard the question asked, too, of, hey, maybe even the pressure of trying to save your head coach's job. You have to have a guy that thinks like this, that embraces the pressure like this for wanting to be that guy to turn it around. You have to have a guy like that. If Florida's going to turn it around, if Florida's going to compete for titles, given where this program has been, you probably need the quarterback like DJ Lagway. He embraces it. And I really think it bled over into the team. Florida was a different team when Lagway got playing time. And it really showed potential. And that potential opened up decision-making from veterans to, hey, we want to be part of this. To finish what they started, to help turn Florida around. The expectations for this team are pairing this veteran experience with the talent and the talented youthfulness of somebody like DJ Lagway. And it's setting up for this to be Billy Napier's best team. And we haven't seen the true DJ Lagway yet. And I think it's got to be scary for opponents. And I know I'm looking at it through orange and blue glasses. I think DJ Lagway is going to be that guy. And not just because he's more experienced. Yeah, I expect just a general jump from year 1 to year 2. We all expect that, but we haven't seen the true DJ Lagway, just a pure player yet. We know he isn't going to be this run-heavy quarterback, but it is an element to his game that was so limited late last season due to injury. He's a pocket quarterback first, and he needs to be, but you know, it'd be up to him to know when to use his legs on RPOs or when a play breaks down. You need to be on the staff somewhat to have a feel when to call design runs. But all that was limited last year. It forced Lagway to be a pocket passer, and in some ways that helps him because he can work on those things. He can work on being that pocket passer, and he can take the next step in that regard. But now we get to include, hopefully, the element of his legs. And that's what has us excited about the potential of DJ Lagway. Pair that with the deep ball ability. Pair his legs with that. You know, an element we've got to see very, very, very little of last year. And pair that with the run game Florida has. I mean, if Lagway's on and the offensive line is on and he's getting help from his receivers and you get to add in a run game, I mean, you know, if that deep ball's still there, what's that going to do for the run game? What's that going to do for guys like Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson, an offensive line that gets to face a light box because they're afraid of Lagway throwing it over their head? This has the potential to be a versatile offense, a very versatile offense. Look, I know many of you out there want to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. I'd like to do that too. But I'd like to have the ability to throw the ball 40, 45 times a game. We need it. If we need to run the ball 50 times to win a game, then go do it and need it. But it all starts with Lagway being able to keep defenses honest with his legs and that deep ball potential. If all that's there, good luck stopping this offense. Now, there's a coaching aspect of it, too, and I know a lot of people will throw that in our faces. But this is an offense nearing 30 points a game last year. I mean, I'm adding another touchdown for my expectation. This should be an offense averaging 34, 35 points a game. There's a lot of potential here. But if DJ Lagway's on, man, good luck. Good luck stopping this offense. Not just because he's on, but he's going to open up that run game. With his legs, with Ball, and Jackson, and Webb, and whoever else gets carries. That's the potential of this offense. That's the potential of this offense. It's going to be, it can be scary. But the thing to me is, it's not being able to go out there. Well, we saw 2020. We saw that happen. And now there's a defense part of that too. And hey, defense can play into this too. If Florida can't stop a soul on defense, Florida may have to slow down the game a little bit or be able to catch up in shootouts. But you need to be able to kind of read the game and then dictate what you want. If the defense is getting scored on left and right, you're either going to have to catch up or you've got to slow the game down. Florida's offense needs to be able to have the ability to do either one. If it's late in the game, we saw this in 2020 too many times. Offense was scoring, defense couldn't stop, but offense couldn't salt the game away in the run game. Still had to rely on the passing game in late game situations. It made some games a lot hairier than they should have been. Well, if this one you're up by 4 and you got the ball with 4 minutes left, go salt the game away with I guess you could do it with another big passing play, but you don't want to get the risk of a fumble, a sack fumble, or a tip ball interception. Florida needs to have the ability to run the ball when they want to and pass the ball when they want to. And I think there's a lot of potential of this offense to be able to do that. All right, let's go to the other side. Let's go to the other side of the ball. Let's hear from Caleb Banks. It was one of some of the offseason news that came pretty early when he decided that he was coming back another season. And his spot, thankfully so. Now, Florida would have had some time to go to the transfer portal, help make up for it. But Caleb Banks, his spot is so critical for Florida's defense. Now, he's on the interior of that defensive line. And I know I've been listening to Cole Kulick a good bit. He's been hyping up Caleb Banks. Rightfully so after that big November that we saw from him. He's shooting up NFL draft boards. But thankfully, Florida doesn't have to replace him. Here's what he had to say up in Atlanta.
Dan Peck, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. Just describe playing for Coach Napier and what you tell folks about him and any sort of growth or development you've seen at a coach in your time at Florida.
Yeah, no, Coach, he's a great coach. He's one of the greatest coaches I've ever been with. When I was at Louisville, I didn't have much film, but when I transferred, he believed in me, and I really appreciate that. And he put me in the best spot to be able to be productive, and I'm here now at SEC Media Day. So, yeah, he's a great guy.
We'll go on the aisle here, 4th row.
Hey, Caleb, Kyle Wood, Athlon Sports. You opted to come back for the season. I'm just curious if you could share a little bit more about your reason behind that and if there's anything that you saw from DJ Lagway that inspired your decision to return.
Yeah, it wasn't just DJ Lagway. It was the whole entire team. I wanted to come back and play with my guys. I wanted to be the first male in my family to graduate, first generation to graduate. I feel like that was very important. And, just come back to get a national championship. And, of course, have a higher draft stock for the NFL in the future. So, yeah.
Left side, 3rd row.
Yeah, Tyler Shaw with KBTX in College Station. You talked about your decision coming back, but part of that, what kind of gives you optimism about this year's squad, this year's Florida Gators, that it's going to be better than last year?
We work hard every day. I watch those guys work every single day. I watch how hard they work. I watch how much work they put in and day out. The extra time that they put in. And it's the little things too as well. So I feel like it's going to be a really great year for us.
You talked about improving your draft stock. What do you think you have to work on the most?
My run game. I think my run game will be the biggest thing for me this year. My pass rush, honestly everything. My pad level, I think I can get improved in everything. There's always room for improvement, so just got to keep going.
We'll go back here on the aisle on the 4th row. If you could raise your hand higher next time, please.
Obviously, the team ended on a high note on that winning streak. How do you kind of carry that momentum from last season into a new year, and how do you also avoid the slower start that you all had in 2024?
Honestly, I think it's a mindset thing. I think if we have the right mindset going into the season this year, and we have a great fall camp, we'll be able to go out and be successful this year.
Harrison Reno again. I know you go against them every day. The offensive line returns, I believe it's 4 out of 5 starters.
Yeah.
What makes that group so challenging, not only in practice, but in games from your perspective?
They play together so well. Like, even in practice, I would speak for practice because I really don't, in the game we're kind of locked in. But in practice, they're connected. They're one. Like, they got a saying 5 equals 1, and they're one. They play together. They understand each other. They know each other like the back of their hand. So that's a great group of guys right there.
All right, there we go. Caleb Banks. And hey, look, good for Banks to experience and be a major part of that resurgence on defense. He's been a part of some struggles on that side of the ball, but him leading the way along with Tyreek Sapp up front, just dominating games late in the season. It's great to see those guys want to continue that. Like I said, I do think that big November gave those guys a taste of winning. Gave those guys a taste of this is what we can be. We want to come back and finish this. And I think that was a message between. We heard Tyreek Sapp say, "Look, I couldn't look my teammates in the eyes and leave those guys hanging. I wanted to see it through. I want to see this through." And look, you hope that cohesion and continuity just really bleeds through. That's what Billy Napier's banking on to build this team the way he wanted to build it. This is the peak right here. So much experience coming back, guys that could be playing in the NFL, like I said, and you get those guys to come back. And look, Caleb Banks now. Just good for Florida in general, too, that he wanted to come back because, on the interior defensive line besides him, look, Billy Napier even said it. Besides Caleb Banks, quote, those guys aren't experienced. Can they handle playing in critical moments of the big-time games? That's what Billy Napier said last week at SEC Media Days. So, look, he's bringing up the question, and we've all talked about it. It's okay to have questions. Questions doesn't mean, questions at this time of year aren't negative. They're just questions right now. We hope we get great answers in the fall. But every team's got concerns. Every team's got questions right now. Just got to see it come out. Joining Caleb Banks, you get Jamari Lyons. I think he's kind of projected to line up right beside Banks there at nose tackle. Missed last year. But you go back to a year ago, and you go back to fall camp, and he was getting labeled as a 1A and a 1B there with Cam Jackson. So if Jamar Lyons can return to what we were hearing just a year ago, now, of course, that needed to translate. We didn't get to see it. But if that was going to be true, and he was essentially another starter, you get to pair that with Caleb Banks, you got to like what you have there in the interior defensive line. But Lyons, valuable experience, 226 career snaps. Rotated in 2023, had 20 tackles that year. He had 11, and 2.5 for loss. So, Jamar Lyons, you throw him in the mix. Mekhi Burrow, also at nose tackle. He coming off for freshman year, he had 15 tackles across 144 snaps. So, add him to the mix. Then you go with Banks, and Florida had to hit the transfer portal. So I'm saying if Banks didn't come back, you already were searching through the portal anyway. But, even because of some deflections before spring practice started, Florida had to go get Brendan Bett from Baylor. And he's backing up Banks, but thankfully Banks stayed, or you'd have to probably go portal shopping for 2 more on the interior defensive line. But you got Brian Taylor also, kind of who's more now shifted on the inside instead of splitting some time. So there's your depth on the interior defensive line. But Bett played a lot as a freshman in 2023, played in 10 games for Baylor. He only played in the Texas Bowl last year for Baylor, so he's essentially taking a year off after academic issues forced him to redshirt. So, those issues got worked out, wasn't necessarily purely grade related, some miscommunications there. But either way, he didn't play last year. So now he comes to Florida at a big position of need, backing up Caleb Banks. You don't want Caleb Banks out there playing 50, 60 snaps every game. Bett's going to have to show up. And then, like I said, Taylor, he split time between defensive tackle and end throughout his season so far. He had 14 tackles last year, 2 for a loss. Then you got Jeremiah McLeod, Joseph Mbachu. Those guys were in spring practice. McLeod was in spring practice, but Mbachu just joined in the summer. So a youthful presence there. Tavoris Brown to walk on, throw him into the mix. But you get, Billy Napier did say it. And talking about the defensive line last week. Quote, it's good to get Jamari back. Excited about Tavoris Brown in year 2. Brendan Bett is a good football player. I like Mbachu and McLeod. Brian Taylor, nobody talks about him, but he's a good player, Napier assessed. So, I think there's guys that are going to start flashing. Big, long, we have to block them every day in practice. So, Napier, talk us about the potential there. Acknowledge that, the overall lack of experience and the need for growth from those young guys. Because there's some losses there. Cam Jackson, Des Watson going on to the NFL. Deontay Robinson we were expecting big things from him this season, ends up going to North Carolina. So Napier goes on to say, Jamari's played some football, but Brian Taylor played a little bit. We need to grow up. Need to get Jamari back in his rhythm, and then the young players. Banks was playing 40, 50 plays a game at the end of the year, and then I think we need some leadership. So yeah, some depth. So Banks isn't playing, 50 snaps a game. He needs some help. Keep him fresh. He'll be better when he's fresh. So Napier acknowledging there are some names. The names have just got to show up. But hey, look, we got plenty of time to kind of go down the depth chart a bit. Fall camp starts next week. We'll be hearing from all the coaches, all the players again. So, we'll be going down the depth chart a bit. Spring practice starting in about a week. All right, let's get back to the other side of the ball before we kind of finish up media day coverage from the Gators side. Let's go at the offense. Jake Slaughter, the center, the All-American center. And look, of course, this is the position group or all the continuity that we're talking about, all the cohesion we're talking about should pay off the most. It's on this offensive line. This offensive line, Jake Slaughter's a part of. Let's hear from the All-American center.
Jacques Douce, WAFB TV in Baton Rouge. Just tell me about late last season going from all the noise to now people saying you're a top 10 team or something like that.
It's one of those things. We had a huge mindset shift in the locker room, and a lot of guys stepped up into a leadership role that maybe they weren't in before. And guys, we called it a one-day contract type of mentality. Guys really shifted the way they thought and approached practice and weights and the training room, and it was a tremendous change and a big mindset shift.
Right side, second row.
Alex Byington on 3. DJ was just in here talking about how the teammates joke with him about his different personality on game day versus. Can you kind of delve into that? What is he talking about when you see the off the field versus when he steps on the green?
Yes, sir. So DJ, he's awesome, right? Like, he's just a hanging out type of guy. He goes in, he's about his business. He works his tail off. He treats everything like it's it's the last thing he's ever going to do. But then on game day, man, he's got a different type of swag to him. Like, he's getting everybody fired up, and you don't see that from Sunday through Friday, just Saturday. And
Dan Peck, ESPN 106.7 in Auburn. There was talk that Coach Napier was on the hot seat at some point last year. How did that affect the locker room and just in general? What is it like to play for Coach Napier?
So I'm going to answer the back part of that question first. Is that we all love to play for Coach Napier. I was so fortunate. I didn't get recruited by him. I didn't commit to him. I committed to the University of Florida, and I was just lucky that a man of his character and integrity became the coach. And I'm just so sorry, answer the back half first. What was the first part?
The first part of the question was about, how did it impact the locker room at all? Rumors about his status as the coach. Did it influence how you guys played?
Right, so everybody tries to block out the noise. We're worried about what's going on, but everybody's well aware. Everybody's on social media. You see it and you hear it, but I think that we did a great job this past season of blocking out the noise. Go play for each other. Go play for Coach. Let's prove each other right.
In the middle, fifth row.
Do you have a specific game day routine, or does someone in the locker room have like a specific game day routine that they go through every single game day, like a ritual?
I try to be pretty flexible because like you'll play a noon kick and then you'll play a 7:30 kick, so you're not going to have a carbon copy game day. But one thing I try to do before I run out of that tunnel every week is I try to get a good thump in the head from Tyreek Sapp. He's got a hard head and a thick skull, and I like a good shot in the dome from him, get my mind right.
Speaking of hard heads, we'll go to Dan.
Growth in DJ, I'm just going to ignore that. Growth in DJ Lagway that you've seen since he got to campus and since he took over the starting role?
Yeah, I mean, he's made tremendous strides, and it feels like every day he's just a little bit better, and he's seeing it better. And, it's big picture playing quarterback. You got to know everything that's going on. So, it's really special to be around a guy like him who works the way he does, who's committed to being the best version of himself.
Right side, and then pass it over, please.
You mentioned blocking out the noise, the hot seat discussion, but how much was it an actual conversation among the players that we need to do this, whether it's for ourselves or for Coach, to keep him around? I mean,
in my experience, I don't know if, we were looking at each other like, hey, it's on us to keep Coach around, but I think everybody was aware that there was a lot of noise about it, and I think that everybody felt a sense of urgency, like, hey, man, we got to go out there and perform.
There we go. And as I mentioned again, if there's one position group that you want to have all that cohesion, you got 4 or 5 starters returning on that offensive line. Crucial for Florida. And some great competition, too. You got Roger Kearney pushing there at right guard, pushing Damian George really well. You have a new starter at right tackle there, Caden Jones, but hey, I mean, all reports so far, he's ready for it. I mean, you got names, but you can go down. Bryce Lovett. So into the mix, as I mentioned, Roger Kearney as well. I mean, Jason Zanamella there at center. I mean, so, maybe can build some depth at this spot, too. But 4 or 5 returning, and if you're the one of those guys that's supplanted like that, well, something. It's probably something good that happened. I mean, Damian George is a quality guard in the SEC, but say he is pushed by Roger Kearney. Roger Kearney's starting at some point in the season. It was earned. He had to beat a good player to get there. That's where this offensive line is right now. And look, here's the storyline I want to go. I want to go with this. It could be better since Lagway wasn't fully available this spring, but something I'm really looking forward to, and you heard the questions asked there, but it's the growing relationship between quarterback DJ Lagway and All-American center Jake Slaughter. Last year at this time, it was a majority of reps going to Graham Mertz. So the relationship was Jake Slaughter and Graham Mertz. Of course, more so than Lagway. Then Lagway gets to play early. He gets injured himself. So the learning on the fly together of the quarterback and center relationship took a bit of a hit. But there's some chemistry there already. And could be more. But there was a limited spring with Lagway. But so much further along than most second-year quarterbacks. So you're pairing Lagway's potential with the best center in college football. Fall camp should go a long way to build that relationship more. And I think it might be an underrated aspect of this offense. You have all the experience, and not just all the experience. I mean, you had Jake Slaughter, named All-American, best center in college football. Austin Barber, first team All-SEC along with him. Austin Barber, first round of mock drafts. Jake Slaughter, high pick for NFL draft teams. So now you're not just bringing back 4 or 5 starters on offense. And that in and of itself would be good. But you're bringing back quality players. You're bringing back half of that 4 or 5 getting All-American love and NFL draft love. So you're not just bringing back bodies. And you get to pair that with potential of a DJ Lagway. That's why people are excited about the potential of this offense. Extend that, though, and, Slaughter talked about it at SEC Media Days. Florida's veteran offensive line. It returns those 4 starters, including Slaughter. I mean, that's the reason for a lot of these expectations. Let's go back to Slaughter. I mean, starting all 13 games. 800 offensive snaps, earns that All-American brick. And Slaughter said, going along with this, I think we made big strides. And one of the big things with offensive line play is communication. If you don't have 5 guys on the same page, you ain't going to be very good. You got to have 5 guys looking through the same lens at the same time. I would say that's been our biggest difference. And truthfully, it's guys playing together, being in the fire together, and kind of having that cohesion through the hard things is critical. So look, all that cohesion and experience have helped the Gators line. They've earned, national recognition. Just talked about that. But a lot of that recognition came through winning games as well. Barber did go on to say, quote, you learn what it takes to be a winner and to win games like we won. It's difficult to put it into words. I'm just one guy speaking for the team. You kind of learn what it feels like when a full week of preparation, a full week of getting after it, and a full week of really delving into everything you need to win a game. It's really hard to describe, but that's what it feels like. So that's what it is about this team. They got a taste of winning. It is about picking up where you left off. Now, it's a different team. 2024, 2025 is different. And that's been a dangerous word so far to Billy Napier. The word momentum. But the taste of winning can help build momentum and sustain it. So for everyone involved, you've heard some of the questions about this is blocking out the noise. And it's kind of true again. Block out the noise again in many ways. And we'll get into it in just a second, but it's kind of the first time, well, not kind of, it is. It's the first time being lauded for a Billy Napier team heading into a season. Having bigger expectations. Look, embrace them for sure. This is what you work for. But you got to stay hungry. Last year was last year. There is pressure. There are expectations, and there should be. It's the University of Florida. There is too much that is better about this team, and I fully believe, Billy Napier said it too, this is a great roster. I believe the roster is college football playoff good. So there's pressure on the players. To me, there's even more on this staff to get it done. You got to have the talent first. I believe it's there. You're pairing talent with experience. This can't be a wasted season. It cannot be a wasted season. Oh. A couple comments right quick, and I'll get into the SEC preseason picks right quick. We need to pay back Miami this year, Dave. Gabe says, yeah, we absolutely do. Talked about getting off to a better start. I know that's only the 4th game of the season, but yep, certainly got to get that payback. For sure. Oh, all right. Let's get to it. Let's take a look at the SEC order of finish predicted by the SEC media. Let me get that off of there. There we go. 2025 SEC predicted order of finish. The Gators are picked 6th in the SEC. Texas was selected as the favorite to win the conference. The Gators got 2 first place votes. Longhorns had 96. So if you go back and look at it, well, let's go through the order of finish first. Number 1, Texas. 2 is Georgia. Alabama comes in at 3rd. The Bayou Bengals, LSU comes in at 4th. South Carolina, 1 spot ahead of Florida at 5th. The Gators come in at 6th. The Rebels from Ole Miss are 7th. Texas A&M comes in at 8th. Tennessee at 9. Oklahoma 10. Auburn comes in at 11. 12th is Missouri. Vanderbilt comes in at 13th. Arkansas at 14th. Kentucky is 15th. And Mississippi State is 16th. So if you go and look at this, and you go back and look at last year, that 6th place team in 2024 would have been in a grouping of Missouri, Ole Miss, Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, and Texas A&M, who were all 5-3 in the conference. Florida was only 1 game behind those teams at 4-4. Florida was the only team at 4-4 in the conference, by the way. But that lets you know what sixth place in the SEC could look like. And it wasn't good enough for a college football playoff spot last year. Now, a 5-3 in the SEC, Florida, that finishes 9-3 overall with out-of-conference wins against Miami, Florida State, and USF, will have a strong case. If the schedule lives up to expectation, a 9-3 Florida in 2025 will be better than a 9-3 South Carolina, Ole Miss, Alabama from last year. But you're still taking a risk. It's not a for sure thing you make the playoff, even with Florida's schedule at 9-3. That's what 6 in the SEC likely gets you. So, SEC predicted order of finish here would likely not be good enough, but it's on the edge. It gets you in the conversation. It would be an improvement, but would missing the college football playoff put a damper on improvement? Like if you're that close, if you're 9-3 and don't make it, then we have to see, how do you lose games? Are there blowouts involved? Is somebody hurt? It's hard to know the situation here. I'm just going, generalities here. 9-3 it's going to be hairy. It's going to be crazy. I mean, college football is getting crazier and crazier. I think the teams, that's the team to beat this year in all of college football. So maybe 9-3 does get you in this year. But you still are kind of leaving it at the risk of being shut out. 10-2, absolutely. You're getting in. You're getting in. So that's about what 6 in the SEC would get you. But at the same time, that would be like a grouping of teams. More than likely. All right. 8 Florida players were selected preseason All-SEC. First team All-SEC selections. We go to the offensive line. Just mentioned that. Jake Slaughter at center. Austin Barber, offensive tackle. Go to second team All-SEC for Florida. You had Caleb Banks on second team. And then you go to special teams. Trey Smack and Rocco Underwood. Second team selections for the Gators. And then third team, Jaden Ball, the running back. Tyreek Sapp at edge. And then Trey Wilson at wide receiver. Listed as third team All-SEC. So 2 offensive skill players there. Jaden Ball, Trey Wilson. Pretty good little nucleus of players right there being named All-SEC for the Gators. Congrats to those guys, and hopefully Trey Wilson, a lot of that's based on his freshman season. Him being third team All-SEC, it was All-SEC freshman his first year. Earned that. Now heading into his third season. After his second season, he didn't play a lot. Listed as third team All-SEC in the preseason. All right. There we go. Like I said, we'll wrap it up with a little bit of recruiting. I guess but there was you look at SEC Media Days. But let's get it to recruiting. And like I said, I guess the vacation commitment magic ran out after the big run in June. I guess all the magic was used in. Quick summary, James Johnson, the defensive lineman that was committed to Georgia, he flipped to Texas instead of flipping to Florida like it was rumored. Georgia then follows that up by getting defensive lineman Vaughn Sohn. Then you had wide receiver Samorian Wingo from St. Augustine committing to Miami. Before I left, a lot of word that, Johnson, the defensive lineman, he was going to flip to Florida. Then Texas swoops in and gets another player Florida was coveting. Wingo committing to Miami. Less surprising after he made that statement in his recruiting that it was pretty much in the hands of his agent. I really liked Florida before that statement. And then with Florida already having 2 commitments at the position from Justin Williams and Marquez Daniel. So the need to spend big wasn't really there. And it also seemed like Florida was prioritizing other wide receivers more throughout June and July. Davion Gross out of Texas seemed like he was going to commit to Florida at any time, then held off. And now Oklahoma, Baylor are in prime position. You had 5-star Sadarian Morgan from the state of Alabama committing to Alabama as expected. But Florida was still in full court press mode on that one. So with the pursuit of those 2, maybe Wingo didn't feel as much as a priority from Florida. Florida certainly would have taken a commitment from Wingo, especially after those, we don't know what's going to happen there with Gross and Sedarian Morgan committing to Alabama. Florida definitely would have taken a commitment from Wingo, but it did seem like we're prioritizing others throughout the summertime. So, like I said, not a shock after all those storylines with Wingo that Florida ended up not being the pick. But we'll see. We'll see. Still lots of recruiting left to go, but that's going to be slowing down. Fall camp will be ramping up. We'll be hearing from Billy Napier and coaches next week and more players next week as fall camp gets started. And if you're a Florida Victorious member, there'll be an open practice coming up as well. So be sure to join those guys there. And so you can go to an open practice. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. Should be a good time. Should be a good time. All right, everybody, there we go. Man, I didn't expect an hour episode here. I thought the talk through SEC Media Days would kind of fly by, but I guess not. You know, hearing from those guys and a little bit of my thoughts from what those guys had to say and what they're bringing to the table for the 2025 Gators. But yeah, I mean, it's a team that is maybe not a program at this time yet. I don't know if we can say it for the program, but we can say for this team, it's a team that's building and not rebuilding. Then we can put that on I think we can put that on the label for the 2025 Gators. But as the title suggests, I think they are poised for more. Could certainly finish higher than 6th in the SEC. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Hope to see you guys at the Independent Gator Media Day on Sunday. Link is in the description for tickets. Hope to see you there. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown.